The truth is out there.
Members of the press, the American public, and people of the world.
The original money came from the Nazis, the Nazi government.
Teleportation.
Well, this is the mysterious case of Dr. Aden. Looking after her patients was her only obligation, but that was back before the situation. Before she got a visit from an agent, he introduced himself as an employee of the nation. He asked would she be willing to offer cooperation. You fit the job description and all the qualifications. If interested, I need your signature on this paper. She signed a dotted line without the slightest hesitation. She then received the letter stating the rules and regulations and the military bases where she must be relocated. She is not to discuss any business that's work related.
Lawyers found the documents and showed it to the government.
They knew immediately something was wrong.
The U.S. government allowed it to happen. The FDA allowed this to happen.
350 additional military intelligence witnesses.
So they made a huge profit.
In Central America, on a classified location, before border control, before illegal immigration, inside a lab where chemicals are manipulated, is where we see Dr. Aden. She's very concentrated, but her concentration's broken when she hears a conversation down the hall. Small talk about destabilization, and out of curiosity, she wanders from her station. Inside an unlocked office, she does some investigation. She breaks into a file with top secret information, probably some of the most disturbing documentation she ever saw in her life. The article simply stated a study being conducted on human civilization.
Why would the Office of Naval Research be interested in a UFO book that contains the story of a disappearing Navy ship?
And then they dumped it in markets overseas.
World population.
Their family members are dying because they're becoming infected with the disease.
I know we're not alone in the universe.
Yeah. Deep down inside, she wished it was all her imagination. She couldn't doubt it, cause there it clearly stated she works in a facility where viruses are created. And not only that, remember when she had her patients? She wrote out prescriptions for what she thought was medication. Her office was really just a part of the operation. She wipes her eyes as they water full of frustration. How? A victim of government experimentation. Where's the justification? Where's the justification? Where's the judge when you need him? He's probably on a vacation, probably inside of the same country that these events take place in. But as the puzzle pieces fall into proper arrangement, yes, we begin to see the intentions of these creations. The patterns of epidemics like HIV in the 80s, biological chemicals designed to be contagious is nothing in the business of controlling a population.
The negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident.
And I will testify before the Congress under oath about everything I have said and more.
That we are not alone.
After this company positively, absolutely knew that they had a medication that was infected with the AIDS virus, they took the product off the market in the U.S. and then they dumped it in France, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. The medicine's called... It was an injection medicine that was used for hemophiliacs, mostly children. Children had been born with an incurable disease.
Hold on, Mike. So hold on. So you're telling me that Bayer knew that this drug was infected with the AIDS virus. They yanked it from the market in America, and then they dumped it in markets overseas?
They had to figure out a way, Joe, to make a profit on a product that they could not sell in America.
They were just grabbing indigenous people off the street and throwing in front of the radar beam, and let's see what happens.
It's sort of like a dream state.
What should Americans do? Mike, welcome to the show. We appreciate you being on tonight.
Thanks for the invitation, Joe.
Okay, let's talk about the rat of the week. Why is Bayer Corporation the rat of the week?
Internal documents show that after this company positively, absolutely knew that they had a medication that was infected with the AIDS virus, they took the product off the market in the U.S. and then they dumped it in France, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. The medicine's called Factor VIII. It was an injection medicine that was used for hemophiliacs, mostly children. Children had been born with an incurable disease.
Hold on, Mike. So hold on. So you're telling me that Bayer knew that this drug was infected infected with the AIDS virus. They yanked it from the market in America, and then they dumped it in markets overseas.
They had to figure out a way, Joe, to make a profit on a product that they could not sell in America. So they made a huge profit. They dropped the product in Japan, Spain, and France. By the way, Joe, government officials in France that allowed that to happen actually had to go to prison for it. In America, not one corporate executive for this company has been indicted or even criminally investigated by our Justice Department.
Why not? You're telling me that these people that dumped this AIDS-tainted blood in foreign countries, who killed children, have not been taken to task in the United States?
It's worse than that. The U.S. government allowed it to happen. The FDA allowed this to happen. And now the government is completely looking the other way. Thousands of innocent hemophiliacs have died from the AIDS virus. And not only they're dying, their family members are dying because they're becoming infected with the disease. This company knew absolutely that they had a problem with the product. They knew that it was infected with AIDS. They dumped it because they wanted to turn this disaster into a profit.
Mike, I want to read to you what Bayer told the New York Times about this scandal. They said Bayer behaved responsibly, ethically, and humanely. Decisions made nearly 2 decades ago were based on the best scientific information of the time and were consistent with the regulations in place. That sounds like a lot of legal mumbo-jumbo. Now, you say you have internal documents that show that they knew that this drug they were dumping was tainted with the AIDS drug? Or the AIDS virus?
The documents show that there was no question that this company absolutely understood the risk, that they knew that it was contaminated. It wasn't a possibility. They knew it was contaminated. Americans were dying from the product before it was pulled off the market. The only reason it was pulled off the market is because lawyers found the documents and showed it to the government, and finally the government said, you can't sell it here, but then the government allowed them to dump it in Spain, France, and Japan.
That's amazing. That's just amazing.
Well,
I want to read to you what the New York Times said, and this is an investigation that they also did, and they said the federal government was part of the problem. While the Food and Drug Administration told the company not to ship the drugs overseas, the man responsible for the drug supply, quote, asked that the issue be quietly solved without alerting the Congress, the medical community, and the public. This is a cover-up, and our Congress is not doing anything. What should Americans do?